Hey, what's up? Hope everybody feeling well today. Doing well, looking good, smelling good. You know, all the good. Good to be back again. It's Monday, Mindful Mondays. Um, what we talking about today is mind over matter. I've come up against some physical challenges. An echo on this thing. Hold on. Let me fix my mic, y'all. Check, check, check. Yeah, just turn it down some on my end. Y'all probably can hear me good. But anyway, I run into some physical challenges on my end, like like running faster, jumping higher, staying up longer. You know, um, so how do you beat that? And I always go to my mind first and try to implement there and let everything work its way into place down from there. Man, my desk. I gotta tighten up these wires all around my desk, y'all. Y'all should see this. It's getting me right now. I thought I had it good. All right. So, with that being said, let's get into our first couple videos. Let me get this. Let me get this box right for y'all. One second. Let y'all be able to see my screen. I was cooking grits all weekend. Cooking grits on the I was just playing 2K. But I went live cooking grits. Like I was just cooking some breakfast for me and the kids, and I named it Cooking Grits, and it never changed the title back. So, hey, Cooking Grits, that's my new thing all weekend long. Check me out, Cooking Grits on 2K, Fortnite, all that. We cooking grits. Hey, what's up, Zanita67? Good to have you in here with us. Don't forget, if you would like to join today, I will be putting out the link. We'll start that at 9:30. Feel free. All right, so we're talking about mind over matter, mindful Mondays. Let's start it off right. It's Monday. Have a beautiful week. Yes, you as well. You as well. So let's see what this means. Let's see. Let's see if we can get some videos on this.
We have someone who wants to be president who has consistently attempted to use.
All right, here we go. I gotta get my game up. All right, here we go. Y'all sit tight.
The mind can hold tremendous power over our bodies. People walking over burning coal with no sign of pain. Seemingly average people achieving feats of superhuman strength. Or even just the everyday person overcoming tremendous adversity. We've all heard the stories. This influence of the mind is often undermined and even brushed aside as wishful thinking. But how far can the power of the mind really go? How much can you really do simply with belief? Could you, for example, get rid of a headache just by thinking it off? Could you get fitter by just believing you exercised? How about reducing the symptoms of a disease without a cure? These things might sound too good to be true. But hear me out. There's actually a whole field of scientific, empirical research out there dedicated to this exact phenomena. I'm talking about the placebo effect. It's generally understood as an effect where your mind tricks you into believing that a not-so-real treatment has real therapeutic results. People seem to experience a benefit after taking a look-alike pill or drug that has no active ingredients in it. Sometimes, the placebo effect can be induced by words alone. All this should have no medical effect on the patient, and yet, it does. There are different kinds of placebos too. Pills, drinks, injections. Interestingly, some of these placebos are more effective than others, but I'll get to that later. In most cases, people receiving placebos believe they're getting a real medical treatment. For example, In a clinical trial for COVID-19 prevention, a medical team chose a vitamin C supplement as the placebo. It was chosen as such because there's a widely held view that vitamin C supplements help prevent the common cold and diseases like COVID-19, even though there's almost no evidence to prove that that's really the case. In this instance, the general perception was enough to essentially hide the pills as placebos, whilst the rest of the medicines were actual treatments. Remarkably, however, in certain scenarios, placebos tend to work even when the patients receiving them know that it's only a sugar pill. Regardless, for the majority of the history of the placebo effect, deception has played a key role. In fact, the name placebo originates from the term placebo singers, people who, according to French custom, would show up at funerals. They almost never had anything to do with the deceased, and would only show up for a share of the funeral food and drinks. Funeral crashers, if you will. And they wouldn't just show up. They would express great sadness and despair at the loss of the deceased, to complete the act. This fake act to please is what the term placebo stood for a long, long time, before finally being introduced in the medical vernacular. The placebo effect is now common in the gold standard of rigorous medicinal practices. So how did this act of deception make its way to medical practice? Well, as with all good inventions, it started off with doubt. In the 1770s, John Haygarth, a British physician, was curious about the efficacy of Perkins rods. These were pointy metal rods that were supposed to draw out rheumatic fever and gout. Other than being absolute crap, this treatment was also expensive. Funny enough, Haygarth's doubt seemed to have been born out of a suspicion for the price rather than the ridiculousness of the procedure, which, to be fair, wasn't all that ridiculous back in those days anyway. But regardless, it was still enough for him to contest that similar results could be achieved using much cheaper rods. To prove his point, he used wooden rods instead of metal ones, and reported that 4 out of the 5 patients saw improvements. And thus, the placebo effect was formally observed for the first time. From there, scientists wondered what could have caused such a medicine-like effect in fake lookalikes, which shed light on the mechanisms of the body that the placebo effect relies upon. Here, the most prominent theory seems to be the idea that there is, and always has been, a correlation in the minds of patients about medical care and its results. Known for research into the placebo effect, Irving Kirsch attributes the placebo effect to self-fulfilling effects of the response expectancies. Pretty much, we expect medical care to do its job. You might wonder how true it is today, considering there is so much skepticism in certain healthcare practices. A patient cured is a customer lost. You've probably heard the quote before. Yet, for some reason, the expectation remains that if you're prescribed something by someone who is supposed to know what they're talking about, it's probably going to work. You and I are all conditioned to believe that when people take a pill, they want to get better. This association has seemingly more to do with the act of pill taking, or any medical intervention, rather than the contents of it. Besides, there is a case to be made that a caring physician can go a long way to relieve us of pain. Maybe not medical pain, but psychological pain. All these contribute towards our perception of a medical intervention. We don't necessarily see a pill as just a standalone chemical compound that we're supposed to swallow, but rather along with all the information about who gets it, how well it works, who prescribes it, and so on. Besides, the effect tends to vary depending on the nature of the intervention. For example, an injection is perceived to be more invasive than a pill, and, therefore, tends to induce a stronger placebo effect. And thus arises a new concern. If the simple act of taking a pill can benefit the user by relieving their pain, what reason is there to develop a medically active drug like a painkiller in the first place? Besides, a lot of these painkillers, like other medications, tend to carry a ton of possible side effects, and the potential for dependency and even drug abuse. Well, that's where the randomized double-blind placebo trial comes in. During the course of such a trial, a patient can be administered with either a medically active drug, the drug that's being tested, or a placebo, usually a sugar pill. And then both of these groups are compared to a group that does nothing. No pills, no drugs, no placebos. Neither patient nor researcher knows who gets what. It's completely randomized and blinded. This is done to control 2 things. 1. The possibility of getting unfair care from the medical professionals based on the knowledge of knowing who is getting the actual medication. And 2. Controlling the results to be based solely on the act of medical intervention taken. For example, giving them a pill, rather than the contents of the medicine itself. Only if a medicine is able to perform against a placebo in such a trial in a statistically significant manner is it even able to be considered for approval. Well, that certainly makes sense. You're testing a medicine against possible issues to be as certain as possible about its effectiveness, right? But These sort of tests are usually run when there's a certain ailment to cure in the first place.
Right.
So, that means a part of the testing demographic is being withheld from a medicine that could potentially help them.
Help them with
As you can see, there's an ethical concern here.
concern, right?
To go back to the example of the COVID-19 trial, imagine being promised by a group of researchers that they are working with promising medication that could reduce your chances of contracting the virus. But, lo and behold, a part of those subjects were given no such medication while being lied to, legal aspects aside.
Yep.
Obviously, you and I know that it's done for the greater good. Researchers generally take layers of precautions to prevent any serious damage, and as more evidence emerges, the know-nothing anxiety about the virus is now turning into just general caution. But still, how would you have felt if you were one of the people who were given the placebo?
Right.
This MLB season, FanDuel is taking.
Just in case you missed the opening, we talking mind over matter here today on Mindful Mondays. All right, let's get back to it.
All this makes the waters a bit murky for placebo research. Besides, we know for a fact that even with illnesses where the placebo effect offers some comfort, the underlying problem that caused the discomfort, more often than not, goes untreated. Take asthma, for example. It's one of the chronic illnesses that has seen consistent improvement from the use of placebos. Some patients were put on trial with an inhaler with a drug called albuterol, designed to open airways. Others were put on an inhaler with a placebo, and others were given no intervention at all. At this point, you should not be surprised to find that the patients who were on the placebo self-reported a much higher level of comfort than those who were put on nothing. The placebo comfort scores followed those closely of the actual drug, but upon closer inspection, it turns out that the objective measures of lung function had only noticeably improved for patients who took the medically active drug, which makes sense. This tells us that the placebo does not alter our bodily mechanisms as much as it alters our subjective experiences, which is not to downplay their importance, of course. A lot of the time, illnesses like asthma are exacerbated not so much by the closing of the airways, but rather a heightened state of anxiety from a feeling of suffocation, which might explain why patients with no improvements in lung function still self-report them saying that they did. To answer the questions at the start, yes, a study regarding a drug called Maxalt has shown that simply the labeling of the drugs patients are taking allowed them to experience migraine attacks of reduced intensity. They were tricked into imagining that they took the migraine medication when they actually didn't, and it still worked.
So maybe this is why so many people don't go to doctors. Oh yeah, it's definitely why.
Yes,
They play.
hotel clean.
Listen, I'm gonna say this once. Let me say this one time. So there's a healer, and then there's the doctor. All right, we're gonna go doctor you back up. I gotta doctor that. We should look that up. Hold on. Doctor definition. So I ain't just saying stuff. A qualified practitioner of medicine, a physician. Let's see some other ones though. A person who holds a doctorate. Okay. Change in the verb is, that's nouns. The verb is change the content or appearance of in order to deceive. Anyway, now, a healer is different. I would like to see your healer, your local healer. All right, let's get back to this.
Patient nor researcher knows who gets what. The people who were given the placebo. This tells us that the placebo does not alter our bodily mechanisms at the start, ratio, and it still worked, and allowed them to experience migraine attacks of reduced intensity. They were tricked into imagining. To answer the questions at the start, yes, a study regarding a drug called Maxalt has shown that simply the labeling of the drugs patients are taking allowed them to experience migraine attacks of reduced intensity. They were tricked into imagining that they took the migraine medication when they actually didn't, and it still worked. And yes, hotel cleaning staff that thought they had exercised through their regular work had all noticed significant changes to their body weight, waist to hip ratio, and even their blood pressure. And yes, patients with Parkinson's disease who were randomly switched to placebos still kept experiencing healing. This is all great news, as it opens up avenues of potential treatments and ways in which patients' quality of life can be improved. In fact, the placebo effect is seemingly getting bigger, which makes these findings all the more important. There are reasons to doubt the placebo effect, however. For instance, just as researchers might be inclined to nudge participants one way or another to affirm their own beliefs about the efficiency of a drug, participants too have their own set of biases. The Hawthorne effect talks about a scenario where participants alter their responses once they realize they're being observed. The novelty of the experience of being part of a trial, the increased attention, all these things might affect what a participant is saying, since so much of the effectiveness of the placebos have been derived from how the patients are feeling. In other words, their subjective experiences. This is a crucial and potentially experiment-changing variable. There's also the idea of regression to the mean, meaning the natural tendency of most patients to get better with time. They might incorrectly attribute this to natural improvement to the medicine they're taking, placebo or not. Additionally, if the magic of the placebo effect depends on our ability to make associations between medical care and relief, then I'm afraid it could also turn to sorcery. Known as the nocebo effect, this phenomenon describes a situation where the expectation of a negative outcome induces negative therapeutic results, the exact opposite of the placebo effect. For example, the same placebo has been found to raise blood pressure, heart rate, and induce sleepiness depending on whether it was given to the participants as a stimulant or a depressant. The changes were significant, mind you, in both cases. It's just that they were exactly opposite, and that's both fascinating and alarming. That's because it goes to show the power of such an association and how it could be used to improve so many lives. But on the other hand, it also makes you wonder how many people are miserable because they're thinking the wrong things. Take fad diets, for example. Once you have established that food A is incredibly harmful for you because someone on the internet said so, you start developing a very strong negative association. You start off by just avoiding that one food. But then you start reading labels and you find out that this has a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you slowly start taking things off your plate. The result, almost always, is an unsustainable diet, not to mention possibly unhealthy. You end up miserable and in a constant battle against your will, a far cry from the healthy lifestyle you started the diet for in the first place. And the funny, or sad thing is, that said food may not have even been bad for you in the first place. It's remarkable how the history of the placebo effect has panned out. From hungry thieves who would do anything for a morsel, to treatments that were considered largely a failure against the rigors of the medical system. From the association with care that spans generations, to ethical qualms that still cast doubt, the placebo effect has come a long way. And if you have ever taken a clinically approved piece of medicine, chances are that it's probably helped you in one way or another. But the placebo effect has always been more than that. It's about medicine, sure, but it's also about us humans and how we respond to our stresses, and how important it is to just feel right. If so much is possible just by the power of imagination, then perhaps you're just a few good thoughts away from happiness. In case you've forgotten, at the end of the day, it's all in your head.
Right. That's my guy, Billy. Oh, my guy. Hey, he put it down for y'all real quick. That's a banger right there. I think that's what they say. All right, hold on. Let's get another one.
If you have a child, 12 or older, and you'd like for them to get into the best university possible, I have something very important to tell you. You see, stop leaving your 6th to 12th graders' future to chance.
Mind Over Matter, Consciousness and the Nature of Reality by Jeff Street. Audio recording by Kim Nelson Ingram. Reality is not what it appears. The ancients knew it, pioneering physicists of the early 20th century knew it, and current leading edge scientists are proving it. All is mind. The big questions and the modern scientific worldview. Throughout the ages, mankind has been trying to answer the big questions. What is the nature of existence and reality? What are we, and why are we here? In our current age, with the ascendance of the ideology of scientific materialism, we have a strong tendency to reject anything that doesn't fit our materialistic paradigm and label it as mystical. We have become mesmerized by the material world. Materialism and consumerism run rampant in our society, lured by the apparent success of the reductionist method that we have used to analyze and understand our world. We have come to view the universe as purely a physical system, working something like a great machine, and with matter being the fundamental substance of reality. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Nikola Tesla. Our scientific analytical methods have certainly been successful and have led us to understand the inner workings of matter well enough to create many useful technologies. But these successes have erroneously led us to conclude that our materialistic view of the universe must be correct and reject other ideas as mystical and backward. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. The materialistic paradigm persists in the popular and scientific thought, despite plenty of evidence that it is indeed not true. The theory of relativity and quantum physics have both shown that energy is more fundamental than matter. The pioneers of quantum physics in the early 20th century, Max Planck, Albert Einstein, and others, all came to the same conclusion, that everything is energy, and that somehow consciousness is intimately intertwined with it. And yet this insight seems to have been lost since then. Physicists are still chasing the fundamental particle and focusing on material phenomena rather than focusing on what energy is, how it forms matter, and what other forms can it take. And modern science is still largely ignoring the role of consciousness, despite the observations of quantum phenomena that strongly suggest that consciousness is intimately related to the nature of reality. Mainstream science continues to assume that reality is objective. For example, that it exists independent of consciousness of the observer, despite much evidence to the contrary, and the conclusions of many pioneers of physics. The accomplished English physicist, astronomer, and mathematician Sir James Jeans had this to say: "I incline to the idealistic theory that consciousness is fundamental, and that the material universe is derivative from consciousness, not consciousness from the material universe. In general, the universe seems to me to be nearer to a great thought than to a great machine. It may well be, it seems to me, that each individual consciousness ought to be compared to a brain cell in a universal mind." And he wasn't alone. Max Planck shares a similar viewpoint. "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." Max Planck, theoretical physicist. Reality is not what it appears. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Shakespeare, Hamlet. Consciousness is probably the most mysterious and significant phenomena in the universe, so to treat it as irrelevant to understanding reality is a major mistake. In fact, there have been some very profound experiments that leave very little doubt that there is an intimate relationship between consciousness and reality, leading some to conclude that...
Sign up to urcreators.tv to download and
rest of that. All right. So I just had a interesting thought come to mind. Let me see. No, that'd be too scary. Let's see. Let me go back for a second and look at one more thing before we move on. No TED Talks.
Cases of the mind seemingly influencing matter have been reported across many cultures and throughout history. Many of these stories strain credulity, but could they have a basis in reality? To explore the relationship between mind and matter, scientists have been conducting controlled experiments for nearly a century. Early mind-matter studies, such as those by J.B. Rhine in the 1930s, were basic by today's standards. They investigated to see if people could influence the outcomes of simple events like dice throws. While positive results were reported, in the 1970s, physicist Helmut Schmidt refined the approach by designing the first truly random number generator, or RNG. Schmidt's early RNG derived its coin flip from the release of electrons from a piece of weakly radioactive material. Schmidt found that when participants mentally intended to influence the RNG, its outputs actually changed to go slightly in the direction of their intention. The effect was very small, but overall, it was highly statistically significant. Later experiments, such as those carried out at Princeton's Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory, confirmed Schmidt's results. When participants intended an RNG to produce more high or low counts, the statistical outputs departed from randomness in accordance with their intentions. Nearly 3 decades of research produced positive evidence of a mind-matter effect associated with odds against chance of greater than 1 trillion to 1. Other experiments, such as those carried out by researchers at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, not only supported earlier findings, they found that changes in mental states and shared emotions also seemed to influence RNGs. When researchers took RNGs to events where large groups of people engaged in similar thoughts and emotions, the devices were often seen to depart from their ordinary random behavior. The Global Consciousness Project, led by Princeton psychologist Roger Nelson, took this idea to a planetary scale, setting up a worldwide network of RNGs. Nelson predicted that global events capturing the attention of entire populations might produce detectable departures from randomness across the entire network. Over 2 decades, some 500 globally significant events, including New Year's celebrations, terrorist attacks, and natural disasters, were associated with significant increases in statistical order in the network. Together, the odds that these results are due to chance are greater than 1 trillion to 1. How these effects occur and what they mean remain mysterious, and yet a large number of studies indicate that where attention and intention go, order mysteriously flows. The mind-matter research hints to the existence of an important relationship between consciousness and the physical world. It implies that the ancient belief that mind occupies a fundamental place in reality could have a basis in truth.
Before I go into my next little game or whatever and get carried away, I want to just speak for a second. So we started at the placebo effect, the nocebo effect, as well, and we've come to, the very edge. Let me get out of here real quick. Hey, that's what's up. I got some stuff. I won some prizes on the game. We've come to the very edge of what it is to be you. And not me necessarily, but you. And when you say you, when I say you, I want you to say you, as in what it means to be you. And you look around and you'll see that a lot of, when you look at yourself, a lot of it is out there in the world as well. Like, take for instance, your eyes. You know that not everybody has your eyes to see the world, but everyone has eyes. So if you start with small things, you start to see just where the edge is, and how often we cross it. We cross the edge all the time. People will say, "Well, did you think about what you were gonna do?" You know, that is literally leaving here, the physical, like they said in the video just now. That's literally leaving the physical to visit a place and think about and visualize and see what it is you're going to do before you execute it in this place here. So let's get a little bit of what our ancestors felt about this. Ancestors on consciousness. Let's see.
The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities.
What did your grandmama think about about awareness and consciousness and being here in this reality in general? What did your great grandmama and so on and so forth?
EVE Online on Mac immerses you in a universe with thousands.
Consciousness is perhaps the biggest riddle in nature. Stripped to its core meaning, consciousness is what allows us to be aware both of our surroundings and of our own inner state. But thinking about consciousness has this habit of taking us round in circles. We all intuitively know what consciousness is. It's this. It's what you're experiencing here, right now. But once we try to pinpoint just what exactly it is, it leaves us grasping at thin air. And not just us. Philosophers and scientists struggle to define consciousness. Different schools and ideas compete with one another, but no one has come close to figuring it out. It's unsettling to realize that we don't understand what makes us aware of ourselves and the world. In this fuzzy area, consciousness and intelligence are also related, although they are not the same. We'll talk in greater depth about theories of consciousness and intelligence in other videos. Like much of what makes us human, our consciousness is likely to have evolved from less complex forms as a product of evolution by natural selection. It has probably emerged from an immense several hundred million year sequence of countless microsteps that together make up a sort of gradient of consciousness. What was the first step on this path from the non-conscious to the basic consciousness that ultimately led to the convoluted consciousness we humans enjoy today? Take a stone. The consensus is that a stone is not conscious, though not everyone agrees even on this. Some panpsychists claim that a lump of rock may have an inner life. However, there are no real grounds for any such assumption, since stones never show behavior. Their inner life can neither be proven nor disproven. A more common starting point is with living things. A living thing, or a self, is a part of the universe that sustains itself and makes more of its kind. To do so, it needs energy. And this is where an awareness of the world comes in handy. The original function of consciousness was probably to direct a mobile self that was short of energy to a fresh supply of food. On the smaller scales of life, you don't need to be aware to find food. Trichoplax adherens, one of the simplest of all animals, moves around haphazardly. It slows down in the presence of food and speeds up in its absence. This is highly effective and makes the tiny creature spend more time where there is food than where there is not. But it never moves in a particular direction towards a particular target, and there's no need for it to be conscious of its environment. The first major step towards consciousness was probably taken when mobile selves started to move themselves directionally, moving towards what was good for them, say food, and away from what was less good, say someone else who thought that they were food. Take Dugicia tigrina, a tiny worm known for its funny face. Sometimes the worm is hungry and sometimes not. This means that when it moves, the worm self is not simply producing an automatic response to an external stimulus, but that its actions depend upon its inner physiological state, whether it's hungry or sated. When it's just eaten, the worm is less energetic, but when starved for a while, it will move itself in the direction of tasty things. It uses chemoreceptors on its head to smell its environment and guide it in the direction where the scent of food is strongest. After finding and eating a meal, our worm buddy heads back to a dark, sheltered spot to digest it in safety, until it's hungry again. But animals that blindly follow their sense of smell don't have a concrete objective in view. They still lack any sense of where they are heading. So the next step on the ladder of consciousness is to add some perception at a distance, like vision. Vision adds context and depth to our world. With vision comes a sense of the space we and our food exist in. It adds a whole new dimension to awareness and is a huge step towards more familiar consciousness. An optical apparatus like an eye enables us to visualize our goal and lock onto it. But even at this stage, a self is only able to pursue its food as long as it sees it. So the next logical step needs to happen on the inside. To visualize food in its absence, for example, a self needs to create some sort of inner representation of the world. Now an animal can continue looking for food even when it escapes its sensory range. Because of this inner representation of what is relevant in the world, it can remain focused on its food and its desire to get it. Our self now exists in a world it can get familiar with. The ability to remember things has emerged. Thanks to memory, animals can be distracted from a pursuit for a few seconds, but quickly continue their path afterwards. A related phenomenon is called object permanence. This describes our awareness that things continue to exist even when we can't see them. This cognitive skill is enjoyed by even when we can't see them. Remember things has emerged. Thanks to memory, animals can be distracted from a pursuit for a few seconds, but quickly continue their path afterwards. A related phenomenon is called object permanence. This describes our awareness that things continue to exist even when we can't see them. This cognitive skill is enjoyed by some mammals and birds, and perhaps other animals too. Human babies tend to develop this ability around the time they turn 8 months, while baby chickens show this ability within a day or two of being born. The capacity to remember a thing in its absence suggests at least a basic sense of time. A sense of time is a big step on the ladder of consciousness. It may also enable a self to look forward from the present moment and anticipate the future. Adult chickens, for example, are able to resist a meal put in front of them if they expect to receive a bigger meal as a prize for holding back for a while. This sort of delayed gratification means there is an ability to visualize a reward that only exists in the future, which can be quite a challenge even for adult humans. Western scrub jays are experts in delayed gratification. They show an even more elaborate sense of the future when they hide food in a cache to retrieve it at a later date. The scrub jays will even re-hide their food if they become aware that a potential thief has been watching them. This means that they know that there are other hungry selves out there who are aware and see the world from their own different perspective. Crafty scrub jays can sort of read the mind of their fellow birds. This ability to mind read is crucial for complex levels of consciousness. By putting yourself in the position of others, you can outsmart a rich competitor or empathize with a hungry friend. Language takes the ability to read minds and represent what is absent to a whole new level. Words enable us to construct hypotheses about the world, make detailed plans, and to communicate them with others. Words enable us to think about ourselves and our place in the universe, and even about our own consciousness, which is something we'll be doing more in future videos. So, what is the origin of our consciousness? It probably began as the directed motion of a hungry self towards a source of food, with the survival benefits this gave it over competitors that moved at random or not at all. It probably all started with the urge for more food. So even with the sophisticated consciousness that allows us to dream about space, build skyscrapers, or obsess about novels, it's not surprising that we can't stop thinking about where we'll get our next meal. Collectively, we've put so much thought and ingenuity into getting food that we can now just get our food to come to us with little conscious effort. This video is part 1 of a 3-part video series relating to big questions of life and the universe, made possible by a grant from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. You can find our sources and further reading in the video description, or get The Consciousness book by Rupert Glasgow for free, link down below. If you want to help us make more videos, you can do so on patreon.com, or get one of our posters from our shop.
Hey, hold on, so let's see what they give us after this.
I used to spend dozens of hours every single week proofreading. I was constantly fixing run-on sentences, unclear syntax, and repetitive language by...
Hey man, I'm trying to win my game. Skip the dang ad. Dang, hold on y'all. Trying to skip this stupid ad. Skip the ad. What the heck is this? It won't let me click nothing.
Humans are proud of a lot of things, from particle accelerators to poetry to Pokemon. All of them made possible because of something humans value extremely highly: intelligence. We think of intelligence as a trait like height or strength, but when we try to define it, things get fuzzy. In a nutshell, intelligence is a mechanism to solve problems, especially the problem of staying alive, which involves finding food and shelter, fighting sexual competitors, or fleeing from predators. Intelligence is not a single thing. It includes the ability to gather knowledge, to learn, be creative, form strategies, or engage in critical thinking. It manifests itself in a huge variety of behaviors, from hardwired or instinct-like reactions to different degrees of learning to some sort of awareness. But not all scientists agree where it begins or what even should count as intelligence. To make this even more complicated, intelligence is also connected to consciousness, since awareness is helpful for problem solving. But we're exploring consciousness in other videos, so today we'll leave it aside. Okay. Intelligence isn't exactly clear-cut, so maybe we can think of it as more like a flexible set of skills, a toolbox. Basic tools. The most basic tools in the intelligence toolbox are the ability to gather information, to save it, and to use it to learn. Information about the world is gathered through senses such as vision, sound, smell, touch, or taste, and helps us navigate and react to the external world appropriately. But living things also need to keep track of the state of their own bodies, monitoring things like hunger and fatigue. Information is the basis of action for all living things, and without it, you're at the mercy of your surroundings, unable to react appropriately or flexibly. Information is much more powerful if we can keep and save it. So the second tool is memory. Memory is the ability to save and recall information so a living being doesn't have to start from scratch every time it perceives something relevant. Memories can be about events, places, and associations, but also behaviors like hunting or foraging methods. Some of these, like flying, have to be repeated over and over until they're mastered. This is what we call learning. the process of putting together a sequence of thoughts or actions. Basically a string of repeatable behaviors that can be varied and adapted. These three tools enable seemingly stupid creatures to act in surprisingly intelligent ways. The acellular slime mold, which is basically just a single huge slimy cell, shows behavior similar to an animal with a simple brain. When put in a maze with food at one end, the slime mold explores its surroundings and marks its path with slime trails, sort of smearing memories on the ground. As it continues exploring, it avoids the marked pathways and finds its way to the food. Instead of blindly getting stuck in dead ends, the slime mold adapts its behavior to save time and effort. This behavior is hardwired, and scientists can't agree if that's intelligent, although it does give the slime mold a certain advantage. Bees are an example of more adaptive smart behavior. Scientists trained bumblebees to move a colored ball into a goalpost for a sugar reward. Not only were the bees very skillful at this behavior, which isn't natural to them, they got more efficient over time. When several balls were available, bees chose the ball that lay closest to the goal, even if it was a different color than the ball they were trained with. For more challenging problems, we need even more flexibility. Fancier tools. Building on the basic tools, more complex animals have a wider range of problems they can solve. They can memorize all kinds of associations, connections, and mechanical tricks. We'll call this tool the Library of Knowledge. Take raccoons. Their favorite kind of food is human food. Their approach to getting hold of such treats depends upon an assortment of theoretical and practical skills that makes them master burglars, able to open windows or pick locks. In a study, raccoons were given boxes secured with different kinds of locks, like latches, bolts, plugs, or push bars. They needed less than 10 attempts to figure out how to open each box, even when different locks were put together into increasingly difficult combinations that had to be solved in the right order and with different amounts of strength. A year later, the raccoons still remembered how to open the boxes and were as fast as when they had first solved the puzzle. Beyond our library of associations and skills, the most impressive tool in our box is creativity, a sort of mental duct tape. Being creative means producing something new and valuable from apparently unrelated things. In the context of intelligence, this means making new and unusual connections, pairing input with memories and skills to come up with a unique solution to a problem. In another raccoon study, researchers showed the animals that by dropping pebbles into a water tank, they could raise the water level enough to reach a marshmallow floating at the top. One raccoon came up with a much better solution. It tipped the tub over. Another facet of creativity is applying a new resource to a task: physical tools. Like primates that use sticks to fish for termites in trees, or some octopuses which assemble collected coconut shells around themselves as a sort of portable armor to hide from enemies. Collecting materials for later use is connected to an even more advanced dimension of problem solving: planning. Planning means considering the activities required for a desired goal and putting them together in a plan. When unforeseen...
That's a real good thing, because that means she exploring what she is. I'll speak to that in a second.
Circumstances and new possibilities present themselves, they need to be assessed according to whether they match the plan or not. An example of this intelligent behavior is hoarding food to eat it later. This is an instinctive behavior in squirrels. But even though hiding food comes instinctively to them, they still need to use advanced thinking skills to make the best decisions. Squirrels examine every nut and weigh the time and effort it would take to hide it against the benefits they would get from each one. Damaged or low-fat nuts are eaten right away, while nuts that still need to ripen go on the stockpile. Squirrels also pretend to bury nuts when they feel watched. These empty caches distract rivals from their real treasure. This is pretty advanced strategizing, because to make a plan to distract someone else, you first have to be aware that there are others like you that want the same things. The more complex the problem, the more tools are needed in combination to solve it. So the more tools there are, the more flexibility a being has to solve the challenges life throws at them. But even for complex problems, each animal's individual situation is what counts. Squirrels are omnivores that defend their territories fiercely.
President Trump, why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't know. I mean, well,
For them, it makes sense to remember where there's food in different locations and trick their enemies to improve their chances of survival. Sheep don't have any such refined tricks up their sleeve, but they don't need to. They are grazers and live in flocks. The skills relevant to them are social. They recognize and remember many different sheep and even humans for years. A completely different skill. Evolving and retaining a complex set of mental abilities they might never use would be a waste of resources for them. Humans went the opposite way and invested in an unusually diverse intelligence toolkit. While this was helpful, by accident we added another set of tools on top: culture. No single person could ever build a space rocket or particle accelerator. But thanks to our ability to work together and to share knowledge across generations, we can overcome challenges beyond any single individual's ability. This allowed us to shape the planet to our liking. We also created new problems in the process: Sudoku, tax forms, string theory, but also rapid climate change and antibiotic resistance. To solve these, we'll need to look past short-term survival and think about the distant future. We have the toolbox. We just need to use it. Speaking of tools for learning, we've heard from many teachers that are using our infographic posters in class. So we asked what would help them the most and made an education edition for teachers, students, and everyone else. They're slightly larger posters about various things that will expand over time, from a periodic table to a world map or the human body. You can get them in our shop and support us if you want. And let us know which poster topics you want for your room or classroom. This video was part 2 of a 3-part video series relating to big questions of life and the universe, made possible thanks to a grant from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. You'll find our sources and further reading in the video description.
Alright. So,
Consciousness is
what I'm going to speak to in this, as I'm playing the game, is that we don't need to sit all day long and think about how to solve problems. We don't need to sit all day long and think about what are the problems. What you should in turn do, in my firm belief, is just be. Because problems and solutions will come to you. So you find a lot of people meditating nowadays, or trying to get spiritually right or correct, or find some sort of inner being. Well, what you just saw in these videos is exactly what everything is trying to do that has this thing we call consciousness, has this infection or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how to describe it. Infection sounds terrible. That has this thing called consciousness. We're all trying to become more aware of it. We're all trying to use it to our advantage. The different skills we have. And in the essence of everything, we only have ourselves within it. Now, what they say is, when we're looking at science will tell you that the external world, the physical world, is all around us. But then you go a little bit deeper. Well, we can use that understanding first before we even go deeper. We can use that understanding to just make microwaves and make cars and homes and, eat good and take care of your children and all of these things. You can use that understanding for that. Now, what about when you want to get some other understanding of what are you? Who are you? Where did you come from? Can you use a toaster to figure that out? Can you use a rocket to the moon to figure that out? You may be able to. You may be able to even use the toaster to figure that out. But it's going to come from inside of you, as opposed to it coming from you just looking at the toaster. You're going to go into your world and you're going to separate yourself from the toaster, from the rocket engine, from anything you could find here in this physical world. You're going to separate yourself from it, and you're going to have your thoughts. You're going to have your mind. You're going to have that internal space, the energy, so to speak. And within that, that's where you start searching. So that's not physical. And so, you know, you have your religious text, you got your spiritual text, you got all of that stuff. And I firmly believe that that's where we're going to end up at again. Just like where we're at right now, we're going to end up here again. Dumb, asking what all of this is. All right. That's my spill for a couple seconds.
Ana yer no ponjen me cho ponchi ara lagan sha kan cha yen dia wala kemme je ga jamane ka barje wan cha yen.
In my experience, spiritual awakening doesn't happen in a linear line where one phase happens after the next. I would say it's analogous to the DNA spiral. For some of us, we might go through certain stages again and again before progressing onto the next stage.
Sorry, y'all,
And for other people, we might skip a stage altogether. Or we might have a combination of two stages at once. Anyway, just like our DNA is unique, our spiritual walk will be tailor-made to fit us differently. Although our paths might not be the same, I think there are common elements to all our walks. So in this video, I wanted to share with you the 5 spiritual awakening stages that I went through, and hopefully you'll see some similarities with your own. Stage number 1, unconsciousness. At this stage, you're mostly unconscious, which means that you'll be operating life deeply within your ego. There isn't enough space between you and your ego. So you think you are your thoughts and your emotions. You essentially don't have much control over yourself, so you can't help but be defensive, be angry, be mean, be cynical, negative, self-destructive, and whatever. People at this stage feel like life happens to them rather than them creating their own life. And so at this stage, they might live life in a very reactive way. Any trauma that happens, they don't feel that they have control over. So they become the trauma, meaning that's their story. That's the story they'll be telling themselves and the story they'll be engaged in. And so they'll get angry, sad, hurt over and over as it plays out constantly in their head. At this stage, it'll be hard to see other people as they are. For example, a person I worked with a long time ago saw me as someone who can potentially take his job, even though I had no intention of doing that. So what he would do is he'd snatch any job that came my way. Just like so, people who are unconscious engage with other people through the lens of their own perception and projection, rather than seeing others as they are. Stage 2. Ego death. Ego death is when there's a total breakdown of the ego or a total loss of the subjective self. For me, I went through an ego death where all the identity I had built up so far was wiped clean. I realized that all the labels that were supposedly me, such as, my gender, age, race, my beliefs, none of that was real. Even my personality wasn't real. Any ideas I had about life, God, religion were all erased. I honestly just felt like a pair of eyes floating in space, devoid of meaning. I have a whole video on this, so you can check it out if you want to know more in detail. Anyway, what results from the ego death is an internal space between the subjective self, or the ego, and the observer self. When you were unconscious, you couldn't feel your observer self.
Right,
the ego is what you thought you were. When you go through an ego death, there's a separation that happens. Meaning. I have a whole video on this, so you can check it out if you want to know more in detail. Anyway, what results from the ego death is an internal space between the subjective self, or the ego, and the observer self. When you were unconscious, you couldn't feel your observer self. The ego is what you thought you were. When you go through an ego death, there's a separation that happens between you and the ego. So you start to understand that the ego is not you. The story you've been told of who you are is not you. And the story you're telling yourself is not you. And you start to become aware of the observer self in the background, the part of you that observes and experiences life. Stage 3, the search. This phase is when you start to search for the quote-unquote the truth. When you're at this stage, you read spiritual books, seek out spiritual teachers, watch videos on spiritual ideas, try spiritual exercises such as meditation, writing, contemplation, praying, channeling, and etc. What drives you is that you want to learn what the truth is, who you really are, why you were born, what the meaning of life is, and who God is, and so on and so forth. For me, this phase came after my ego death. Because my identity was wiped clean, I started searching for who I really was in an effort to rebuild my identity. Who am I, really? What is God? What is the meaning of it all? I read spiritual books and self-development books insatiably. And I watched a lot of videos. As things started making sense more and more, I started feeling light and feeling connected and high. Stage 4, emergence of the authentic self. There will come a point where you can't pretend anymore or fake it anymore. This is the stage where your authentic self emerges. You know, the self that you used to be when you were a kid before you were trained out of it? Well, that stage will emerge. You'll find that you can no longer repress your voice. You'll find yourself having no tolerance for unbalanced relationships. And if you have a job that doesn't resonate, well, that'll probably go out of your life. For me, at this stage, I quit my corporate job because it became too painful for me to fake it anymore. I was so painfully aware that the job wasn't for me. So, I just couldn't continue. I was also uprooted from my previous life. Literally, my house in LA caught on fire. Lifelong friends and family fell away, and years of isolation proceeded afterwards. But also, at this stage, I found my soul purpose. I have a video on that as well, so I'll link it here if you're interested. Anyways, this is the stage where old energy is leaving and new energy is coming into your life, into your body. So you might notice that you start purging out old emotional wounds or psychological trauma, even the most minute ones that you had forgotten. So there might be emotional roller coasters happening. You might also experience physical ascension symptoms because old energy is leaving the body and the body is being calibrated to the new energy. And with the new energy, you might notice that your intuitive abilities become stronger and you have multidimensional experiences like lucid dreams, premonitions, visions, and so many other things. Stage 5, life of alignment.
The pineal gland has tiny little cilia, hair-like extensions all around it. When you hold your breath and you find
At this stage, you live a life of alignment where you're aligned with every part of you and every part of everything else. You live connected to all of yourself, your soul, your mind, your body. You have compassion for yourself and forgive your limitations. You start being the parent that you needed and start having unconditional love for yourself. And because you do this for yourself, you start doing it for others as well. You have compassion for others and forgive their limitations and understand that they can only be who they're being at the moment, even if they're not being kind. Not only are you connected with yourself and others, you become more and more connected with everything else. You realize you're connected to the trees, the plants, the animal, the air, the earth, the space, even the furniture in your house. And you're connected with the spiritual realm, so knowledge and wisdom opens up to you. You start understanding that there isn't a right and a wrong, or a higher or a lesser way of being. We're all playing our part and holding our space, benefiting each other and being the expression of God at every level. But you also see the darker side of things as well, but, not in a cynical way, more in a compassionate way. In conclusion, I want to say that no one stage is superior to another stage. No matter what stage you're in, you are being God expressed. Even if you're in the first stage where you're unconscious, you're still God experiencing life. Also, I feel this so deeply, but spiritual awakening is not about reaching a certain destination and then we're done. You know, life continues on, and maturity happens continuously, even after death, even beyond death. Anyway, hope this helped. Tell me in the comments below which stage you think you're at.
Hold on. Give me a second, y'all. All right. Hold on. I want y'all to see some of these.
Have you ever wondered what kind of creation stories are in the world? There are quite a few. Since the early days of civilization, humanity has pondered the origins of the universe. Fortunately for us, through oral tradition and writing, we can learn about these creation myths. Often, these myths are vastly different, from a universe birthed from chaos to a universe that wasn't created at all. On the other hand, many of these stories have surprising similarities, even when they're separated geographically from Asia to North America. Ready to hear a few origin stories? I'm Mike with List25, and here are 25 creation stories from around the world. #25. Australian Aborigine creation story.
I don't care what you.
The indigenous people of Australia told a story of...
Second, for y'all see this. I don't care what your individual belief is and how the world was created. Because if I stop to care about what your individual belief is and how the world was created, then I have to care about theirs. And if you want somebody to care about yours, you have to care about theirs as well. So with that being said, I don't care what your individual belief on where we came from and how we got here is. We talking about the fact that we here and what other people believe from around the world in this video. That's all I want y'all to see, because it's a reason why we watching this. Let's go.
When everything on Earth was asleep. 25. Australian Aborigine creation story. The indigenous people of Australia told a story of how, when everything on Earth was asleep, the Father of all spirits was the only one awake and woke the Sun Mother. He commanded her to go down and give the spirits of the earth forms. She woke the plants, insects, caves, and everything on the earth until it was finished. The Father of all spirits was pleased with the Sun Mother's work. Later, the Sun Mother gave birth to 2 children, the Morning Star and the Moon. These 2 gave birth to the children that later became humanity's ancestors. 24. Heliopolis creation story. This myth comes out of ancient Egypt. It states that in the beginning only a chaotic water existed they called Nun. The sun god Ra appeared from a lotus flower and gave light to the universe.
Picture this. You're sitting at home alone watching YouTube videos, wondering why you can't find the motivation to do the things you need or want to do or change in the ways you'd like.
Ra created Shu, the air god, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Those 2 gave birth to the sky goddess Nut and the earth god Geb. From them, the physical universe was formed. 23. Mayan creation story. In Mayan culture, Tepeu, the maker, and Gugumatz, the feathered spirit, created the world with their thoughts. They created beings to look after their creation. First, they made animals of the sky and land, but needed a being that could properly communicate, so they made man. They made him out of clay, but he crumbled apart. Then they tried making him out of wood, but he was empty-headed and hearted. Finally, they made men out of corn, and these men were empathetic and intelligent. 22. Ainu creation story. In this creation story from the Ainu people, the world was created when oil from the ocean rose up as a flame to the sky. What was left was land, and the vapor created 2 gods descending on 5 colored clouds. Out of these 2 gods and their colorful clouds, the earth, including the plants and animals, and other gods were formed. 21. Rangi and Papa. This Polynesian creation myth says the world emerged from a shell. When the shell was slowly opened, light came inside. The top of the shell became Rangi, or sky, and the bottom, Papa, earth. Rangi and Papa loved each other and gave birth to 70 powerful gods that helped in creating the world as it is today.
20.
Pangu. In Chinese Taoist mythology, Pangu was the first man who came out of chaos, with 2 horns, 2 tusks, and a hairy body. He separated the seas, put the mountains in their place, and gave the earth its form using a powerful knowledge of yin-yang.
19.
Proto-Indo-European creation story. In this myth, a primordial being is sacrificed, killed, and dismembered. Its body parts are used to create the universe. This being's name is different in all societies. For instance, in Old Norse myth, this being is called Ymir.
18.
Cherokee creation story. For the Cherokee, the earth was a mere island floating in a big ocean. It hung from 4 cords, and the sky formed the ground. But the darkness made it impossible for the animals to see, so the sun appeared to help them find their way. There were 7 days and 7 nights, and God instructed the animals to stay awake. Still, some fell asleep, but those who stayed awake, God gave the ability to see in the dark.
17.
Raven creation story. For many cultures, a raven plays a big part in creation. In the beginning, there was no moon or stars at night, and the raven was the most powerful being. He made all the living creatures on the earth, including man, but they lived in darkness. The raven learned a great chief had a daughter who carried the sun, moon, and stars in cedar boxes, so the raven went and stole all of them, giving them to the world.
16.
Hindu creation story. In the Rig Veda, it tells of Purusha, a being who had 1,000 heads, eyes, and feet. It could clutch the earth with its feet. The gods, however, sacrificed Purusha and made it into butter that became all the animals, elements, and 3 gods, Agni, Yayu, and Indra.
15.
Völuspá. This narrative is a Norse myth compressing all of Earth's history and future into 60 poetic stanzas. In it, Odin requests the seeress Volva to share her prophecies with mankind. She tells the story of creation when the world was a mere gap before Odin and the other gods created Midgard and named morning, noon, afternoon, and eve. Eventually, the first war between Aesir and Vanir ended with Vanir becoming gods, which resembled the enduring conflict before the end of the world called Ragnarok.
14.
Japanese creation story. In this myth, the elements were mixed together to create one germ of life. When it mixed things around, the heavier parts sank and the lighter rose. A muddy sea was created, and a chute sprang forth and reached the clouds, entering the sky. This created a god, and it grew lonely and created other gods. 2, called Izanagi and Izanami, were the most remarkable and formed most of the earth.
13.
Sumerian creation myth. For the ancient Sumerians, in the beginning there was only the goddess Namu. She gave birth to the universe, Anki, who then gave birth to the air god Enlil. Enlil split the universe in 2, making An the sky god and Ki the goddess of the earth. Eventually, many gods came into existence, and they were made to do hard labor until they rebelled. Enlil came up with a plan to create lesser beings to serve the gods. They elected Geshtui, who had great intelligence, to be sacrificed. Ninmah, the birth goddess, mixed his flesh and blood, and all the gods spat on it. His body was made into clay, which eventually made 7 men and 7 women.
12.
Pelasgian creation story. In this myth, Eurynome was the goddess of all things, and the only one in the beginning. She rose out of the chaos naked and divided the sea from the sky and danced on its waves. She caught hold of a north wind, rubbed it between her hands, and created the serpent Ophion. When Eurynome danced, Ophion grew lustful, coiled up her limbs, and coupled with her. She became with child and birthed the sun, moon, stars, and the earth with its mountains and rivers. They made their home on Mount Olympus. But when Ophion taunted her by saying he created the universe, she brushed his head with her heel and kicked him down to the lower places of the earth.
11.
Enuma Elish. This myth comes from ancient Mesopotamian tablets dating back to 1100 BCE. But it's worth noting they were all copies, and the myth likely is much older. In it, the beginning was filled with chaotic water that divided into fresh water, known as the god Apsu, and salt water, known as the goddess Tiamat. These two gods give birth to other gods. These other gods began to cause trouble and upset Apsu so much he wanted to kill them, which created a conflict between him and Tiamat. From the conflict, a great warrior named Marduk fired an arrow at Tiamat and splits her in two, which is said to have created the Tigris and the Euphrates River. From her corpse, the heavens and the earth were created.
10.
Kumulipo. A Hawaiian creation account very similar to Rangi and Papa, the Kumulipo is a chant which told of how the earth first became hot and land came from the slime of the sea. A dark cavern, a male, and a moonless night, a female, gave birth to the life of the sea. Afterward, flying creatures were born, and soon after that, the creatures of the land. Finally, from the union of La'ila'i with Ki'i and Cain came humanity, and it was day.
9.
Jainism. The Jains have a much different take on the creation of the universe than many cultures in that it never happened. Essentially, within Jainism, nothing in this world is ever created or destroyed. They merely change forms. The universe has always existed and will always exist. Time for the Jains is cyclical.
8.
Genesis creation story. Perhaps one of the most famous creation stories in the Jewish Torah and Christian Bible, the book of Genesis depicts that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless, and the Spirit of God hovered over the water. He said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. He created all things, including human beings, in 6 days, and then rested on the 7th, which he made a special day.
7.
Mande creation story. For the Mande of West Africa, in the beginning, only Mangala existed. Mangala is a big and energetic presence. Within him were the 4 divisions, 4 days of the week, 4 elements, and 4 directions. He put a part of himself into a seed and let that become the creation of the world. The seed, however, blew up, and Mangala started again, creating 2 more seeds. Eventually, he created the animals and humanity.
6.
Cheonjiwang Bonpuri. Frequently retold by shamans in Korea, this myth begins with the sky and earth being one, creating an empty void. A clear drop of dew fell from the sky, and a dark drop of dew came out of the earth, and when they mixed, it created everything on earth, except the sun, moon, and stars. Cheonjiwang, the king of heaven and earth, woke up to the sounds of 3 roosters. He knew they were crowing because there were no suns, so he created 2 suns and 2 moons.
5.
Mongolian creation story. For the Mongols, Udon the Lama is the one who created the world. At the age of 500, he lived in a world that hadn't been created yet, and at age 1000, he separated the heavens and the earth, creating a 9-story heaven, 9-story earth, and 9 rivers. Eventually, Udon made humanity out of clay, and the entire human race descends from them.
4.
The Golden Chain. A story from Yoruba tradition says that before any people were created, all life existed in the sky. Olorun was an all-powerful supreme being who lived in the sky with other creatures called Orishas. Obtala asked Olorun's permission to create the solid earth in the waters below, and Olorun agreed. But before he went down, Obtala had a gold chain made by the Orishas to help him descend into the waters below. When he created the ground, he called it Ifa, and later, with the help of Olorun, sparked fire into Ifa to create the first people.
3.
We have someone who wants to be president who has consistently attempted to use race to divide.
You get advanced AI capabilities.
Don't start this again.
Navajo creation story. In this myth, the first world was small, pitch black, and surrounded by 4 seas, with one island that had a single pine tree. The four seas were ruled by the big water creature, the blue heron, the frog, and white thunder. Above the seas were black cloud, white cloud, blue cloud, and yellow cloud. When the blue and yellow clouds came together, the first woman appeared, while the black and white clouds created the first man. They lived together and later were greeted by the great coyote who was formed in water. He said he knew all of the secrets of the water and skies. Then a second coyote came named First Angry, and he brought witchcraft into the world.
2.
Unkulunkulu. The pre-colonial ancient Zulus believed that before animals or humans existed, only darkness and one large seed were on the earth. The seed sank into the earth and formed long reeds called Uthlanga. One reed grew into Unkulunkulu, the first man and creator of all things. As more things, like men and women and animals, began to grow on the reeds, Unkulunkulu broke them off and he created the streams, mountains, lakes, and valleys. He taught men and women how to hunt, make fire, and create clothes.
1.
Vainamoinen. In Finnish mythology, an old sage named Vainamoinen creates the universe and is their epic hero, first consciousness, and the first power. While floating in the sea, he also creates the land of the earth. He then scattered seeds to fill the earth so that it would not be barren. So, what's the most popular creation story from your culture? Let us know in the comments below or tweet your answer to us at List25.
All right, so if you would like to join and talk for a few minutes about our topic today, mind over matter, hit the link that you see in the chat right there, and I'll get you queued up. I don't mind sitting and spending the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes before we go off, just chatting. Hit me up. In the meantime, I got something that I want to play. I was saving it for the end of the show. I gotta find it though. Hold on. Hold up. I cannot find this video. Somebody showed it to me. I think I'm gonna just watch this video right now because I can't find the one I was looking for.
Your brain is two brains, two hemispheres, each doing half the work of being.
Oh, he I think I found it. Got it. Got it. There we go. Y'all check this out. Y'all gonna like this. Found all of the information, amazing, many of them are similar creations. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right?
And we're back. And the team is looking down the barrel of a 4:55 meeting.
They're gassed, Jill. Can they turn it around and make this meeting an email?
It's going to be a tough shot. But whoa there, they're getting an assist from Grammarly.
What a play. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you make your point.
And watch her finesse this, Bill. She's adjusting the tone beautifully.
Take a look at that, Jill. It really sounds like her. No substitutions.
She's got a clear shot and it's good.
They're giving it the full court press now.
I can hear you. So let me pause it. So how much of it did you see already? Okay, so look. So this is just a animation explaining the physics of our reality. That's all it is. Um, and basically from the beginning to the end, they showing you different mathematical equations that they've discovered throughout the course of human history, from velocity to distance and all of that stuff. I'm watching. I like to watch it because Nami showed it to me, and it's basically your understanding of your world as you get older. You know, you go from a baby to being this grown person that, you know, obviously you can walk and talk if you're able to. You know, for those who are not, you're still able to do some of that stuff, like you're cognitively aware. So, how do you feel about mind over matter? How do you feel about just the instance of it, or thinking about it? Okay, hold on, wait. They can't hear you. Hold on. My bad. I'm so sorry. To everybody. Yeah. I never changed the setting. So there you go.
Okay.
Say what's up, and then whatever it is you was about to say.
All right. Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes, it's still morning, of course. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm trying to figure out mine.
Hold on.
You can't hear me?
There we go. Now I got it right. They could hear you, but I couldn't hear you. So go ahead, continue, please.
No, I'm just giving, greeting everyone, saying hello, see how everyone is doing today. And just, chiming in on the topic matter, which is interesting because I think I'm dealing with that right now, trying to figure out, how everything is coming together and blending together, but also more or less on the mindset part, trying to, I guess, balance it out with my actions, and then also dealing with my mental state, which affects my physical state, which affects all these other things that are going on in my environment. So that's where I'm at with that. That's all that I remember that I heard through the.
Well, I'll give you just a little bit of more information that we discussed today. So one of the videos talked about how science is slowly starting to realize that it's more to the world than just the physical. And as we approach what that is, we have to look back into the past at what the ancients were telling us. How do you feel about spirituality?
Well, I know that it plays a vital part in my life, my day-to-day way of pretty much starting my day. I grew up in a religious household, and I grew up with a spiritual realm within my household. So I still carry that in a sense of time where I want to sit and meditate and take time out to just focus on, my mental health and also my self-care.
Yeah, so I got a question for you, and it's for my personal recipe book right here. Right? So check this out. I'm currently in the phase of young children, which you know what I'm saying? They go to church with their nana, but I have my own, let's say spiritual ways about myself that I want to impart upon them, such as meditate. You see what I'm saying? How would you go about that for the younger children, like maybe 9?
Well, yeah, I know. So what you're saying to me is it's no different in someone creating a prayer area. So where they may have a closet. It's the same thing. You have a meditation closet where you go and you relax and you unwind and you meditate and you focus on, the things that you would like to change within yourself. The same difference, if you have a prayer closet, you're going in and you're praying to your higher ups, in the sense of focusing on, bettering yourself, self-healing. I think it's the same. So incorporating that with young kids, you can do both. Actually, you can just introduce them to different things. I know some things that we used to do in our after school program is we did have a meditation moment, and there are some schools that actually do that, probably like 3 to 5 minutes, because their attention span is quite short. So, and just taking that time and practice on breathing, certain sitting positions, just trying to make them better individuals, kind of balance them out too.
Definitely. Yeah, that's for my own recipe playbook. I done tried a few things, but I like to see, I like to see it from different angles. Another video that we watched, it was explaining, you commented too as well, it was explaining consciousness in a simple way for us to understand, and intelligence in a simple way for us to understand. And the examples it gave is, all right, intelligence would be, the raccoon remembers, well, first of all, learns how to open the lock, and then remembers how to keep opening it, even if you give it different situations. So in us as people, how do you feel our intelligence is best used? Not, how can we become aware or more aware of it, but how is it best used, whether it be personal or, for us as a whole?
I think I would say that it's best used when we're able to figure things out ourselves. Although it's easy to go to a quick, but mainly because I'm thinking about our ancestors. Okay, well,
I see where you're going.
So how is it that they were able to come about a lot of things? Just not just the stuff that man made, but just the natural resources that they were able to use and still maintain a lifestyle.
Right.
So I'm trying to elaborate a little more.
Yeah, I'm feeding off the word quick. When you think about when I think about learning or intelligence, go ahead.
No, just trying to be able to problem solve.
Yeah. So so let me give you the background first. So let's say you see a round ball in a square peg, right? You instantly is like, yo, that's not gonna fit, it's not gonna work. You see what I'm saying? So that right there is the intelligence in you to be able to analyze that, and without even attempting, you see what I'm saying? You just automatically can visually use all of your faculties to see that wouldn't fit. So that right there is the intelligence. Now I take it a step back, because I do have a question following this. But I'm gonna take a step back with my dog and all of the stuff they was talking about with training the different various animals. I was like, yo, do you know the implications behind that, just using that intelligence that they have to be able to just get food? You can teach them to do a bunch of stuff, right?
Survival.
So, exactly. So think about us as people and saying, okay, we've already risen from just the food. We know to push or shake the tree or the machine to get the food out. We've risen past that to now we're calling DoorDash and Uber to bring us the food, right? So my question is, where do we go from here once we've already reached, just in your personal opinion, we've already reached the pinnacle of using intelligence for physical gain? What do we? What else can we use it for? Like, just from you personally.
That's a good one. I don't even know. Let me see.
I just want you to give me your best shot at an answer.
I know.
Because each individual intelligence has the piece of the answer.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And to me, just listening to some of the things you pointed out is just being able to maintain and survive with whatever resources we do have currently or whatever we will have in the future. To add to that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess continue on with what we're doing and just keep enhancing what we have. I know technology is going to be way more advanced than it is now. The technology is probably going to be taken over, of course. I'm assuming because there already have started some AI stuff in like restaurants and stores. So
what about that? Can you speak to that integration? Like, how do you feel about that integration? Right.
I think I mean, a lot of people don't want to work, so I mean, production still has to go on.
Right. I like how you simplify that. Yeah. Hey, look, you don't want to work? We got you.
I mean, production still has to go on. We still have to live. We still have to be in a more civilized space to where we all can feel somewhat comfortable with our lifestyle. I think AI is great. I'm not going to say that I can go against it. However, some people are afraid that it's going to wipe out mankind. You know, in a sense of it's going to be replacing a lot of jobs. I do feel that it will do that, but at this point, people don't want to work. I'm just saying.
Right. So Zanita67 said, "You will find that the younger they are, they may be receptive to it. First time I took Ella to church, she was the first little one to want to pray us out of Sunday school, and she did great. Hey, that's my girl. Keep growing and moving forward with enhancing our lives and living in the world." So to go back to my previous question, I just want to answer it too as well. I feel we're gonna use our intelligence to become wiser about who we are, not only as individuals but as a species, as culture. All of these things are gonna come together through our intelligent understanding, of the grand design. Let me say that one more time. Intelligent understanding.
That's what artificial is. Artificial intelligence, AI.
Yeah. So as far as that integration go, let's say you ran into the robot. Me and you gonna always say the robot. But there's gonna be future generations that they're gonna attribute that awareness or that consciousness or whatever you want to call it to something that's not just, you know what I'm saying, a robot. So yeah, it's scary, and it's scary.
I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, you look at the movies. It's a lot of movies out there. Like one of the movies, artificial intelligence. The movie with iRobot. I mean, there's a lot of movies out there. Even the old movies, they still reference to where we are now and further on. But intelligence is vital. You know.
Right.
I mean, without it.
What would we do, right? But I'm gonna lighten the mood. I will say this: people have been scared of everything. I could imagine being scared of the phone. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you gonna call me? Well, I don't want you calling me. You know what I'm saying?
Weird. Yeah.
So going forward, all I can say is to speak to our topic just a little bit more. Watch the movies. Yeah, of course. That's why I say we know. Like, all right, check this out. I'm gonna say two words, and y'all just gonna resonate. You gonna go crazy. Payphone.
I miss those.
Right, a payphone. What?
It's cheaper.
Hey man, let me get a dime. You got a quarter? You got 35 cents? 50? I used to go in the payphone and just click the little, you know what I'm saying, or open the little change drawer.
You can try to manipulate it.
Yeah, or dial numbers. So, just think of how far we've come. Anyway.
Yeah.
I will say this. We coming up on the last 10 minutes. I'm gonna say this to speak to and then you can give your conclusion to speak to the topic. When it comes to mind over matter, it's just speaking about an equation to me, and you can take the higher or the lower, but it's gonna be a fusion of them both. You can't have one without the other. Now you can figure the rest out for yourself. You got anything you want to say to speak towards that? 67 said payphone. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it eventually impacts our physical experience and outcomes.
Yes.
So we just need to make sure we're harnessing all that, everything that we receive, make sure we're harnessing it and make sure that we are overcoming our challenges, whatever we're facing day to day, and just focus on overall well-being.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for joining us again. Oh, we're gonna get you your own segment. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write it out. All right.
I would love that.
Yeah, as long as you're available, we'll get you a segment. Work out the times. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I will enjoy it. I'll be right there.
All right. Well, I'm gonna speak these last conclusions. Thank you for dropping through. I'm gonna get you up
Thank
out of
you.
here. You already know. All right. So that was Odessi DW, one of our loyal subscribers here on for DGTA and Expansion Pack. Thank you for stopping through. Really, 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 it was a pleasure. So I do want to speak, and I don't need the background music for right now. I do want to speak to this topic for just a brief bit more. So if you know anything about time, which I'm pretty sure you do, time is the great leveler, or whatever you want to call it. I just put that together. Time is something that we all have the experience of going through, knowing, interacting with. And one thing that is true is that if you give it enough time, you'll see it again, whatever it is. And so this stage of living that we are in right now, let's just call it the spot before, the time before, or the place before the rebirth. And the reason why it's going to be a rebirth is because there's always going to be something out there that let me see, my other hand, and there you go. It's always going to be something out there that we're reaching for. And there's always going to be something that we left behind. And so with us being encapsulated or stuck in this present moment of our conscious awareness, it's hard to grasp what mind or spirit or anything outside of physical is, unless you give yourself the time. Now, the time will take you into your mind, and you will find once there is no frame of reference. There is no up, down, left, right. There is no backward, forward in time. There only is. With that understanding, you have the capability to create what is, whether it be time, up, down, left, right, physical, space, matter. We call this ability vision and or imagination. With the vision comes the void. Hand in hand, married couple, duality, positive, negative. As you extend your vision, you extend the void. The void being nothing, the space that you use the vision in. Now, using all of this, we have come to be. The Big Bang and all of that stuff. Using all of this, we have come to be. At this moment, at this space, at this current time. Okay? We will also return to a time of pure knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom. If it's all the same, correct me later. Which will show us where we have come from, where we have left behind. It will also present to us what we can reach for. Once we reach that moment, we will be able to see this moment for what it is. Time is doing this. ladies and gentlemen. It's going in a circle. And at one point, we were very, very, very intelligent. It's like we beat the game. Got all of the prizes, puzzles, all the unlock codes, cheat codes. From that point was the end and the beginning. For those who speak of the ancients, gods and ancient creatures and ancient angels and people that have taught all of these things throughout time, you are speaking of those who have begun again from the end. Hence, mind has returned to matter, and matter back to mind. That has been our conclusion today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad y'all joined me. It's been great. This was a great start to a new week. Don't give away or go back to a dormant state. Let's not call it unconscious. Don't go back to a completely dormant state. Think of this as your parent or whoever it is, your alarm clock, waking you up and you are awake. You're no longer dormant. You're no longer asleep. You're no longer unaware. You're no longer unconscious. You do have those things and have the ability to visit those states of being, but that is not the totality of who you are. Just think of it as you stretched, you yawned, and you're hanging your feet over the side of the bed and you're putting them in your slippers. No more can you return to a dormant state of not fully using all the gas you got in your tank. All right. So we're going to get up out of here. I'm going to show y'all a little bit more of this video. Peace.
President Trump, why do you believe it's appropriate to...
All right, they put a commercial on. So y'all go watch it on your own time. The name of it is Animation versus Physics. It's cool. It's a cool video if you want to know anything about yourself, I guess. Peace. We about out of here.
Thank you.